My name's Jake, and I've always been the black sheep of my family. My parents didn't outright hate me, but they never believed in me either. My younger sister, Emma, she took it a step further. She loved making my life miserable. For years, she mocked me for chasing my dreams. I worked hard, starting my own business while she lived off my parents' money, flaunting designer brands and looking down on losers like me. But funny enough, when my business finally took off, suddenly she had no problem accepting expensive gifts from me. At first, I didn't mind. I had more than enough money, and I figured, hey, maybe this will make her respect me. Oh, how wrong I was. One evening, my family had a big gathering at our parents' house. Everyone was their cousins, aunts, uncles. Emma showed up wearing a $2,000 coat I had bought her last Christmas, along with a purse I knew she couldn't afford on her own. And yet, the moment she saw me, her face twisted into a smirk. Well, she said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. If it isn't our successful businessman, oh wait, no, you're just a pathetic failure, right? She laughed, and to my disgust, half the room laughed with her. I clenched my fists under the table. Nice coat, I said, my voice calm. Where'd you get it? She flicked her hair. Oh, this? You bought it, didn't you? Guess you're good for something at least. More laughter. My parents just sat there, saying nothing. My uncle snickered. My aunt hid a smile behind her wine glass. It was like they all found it hilarious to watch Emma tear me down. I should have said something. Should have called her out. But I didn't. I just stood up, picked up my keys, and walked out. No yelling, no fighting. Just left. And that was the last time I gave her a single dime. For the next month, I ignored every message from her. No more gifts. No more fancy handbags or spa days. She'd taken my kindness for granted, and I was done. At first, she didn't seem to care. She had other people to leech off of, right? But then, something changed. One night, out of nowhere, I got a call. It was Emma. She was sobbing. Jake, please, I need your help. I almost laughed. Now she wanted my help? After years of treating me like garbage? Why would I help you? I asked, my voice cold. It's Mom and Dad, she choked out. They took all my money. I don't know what to do. I stayed silent for a moment. Then, I leaned back in my chair, a slow smile forming on my lips. Oh, I said. Tell me everything. Emma sobbed into the phone, her words barely coherent between gasps. They took everything, Jake. I don't have a single cent. My bank account is empty. My credit cards are maxed out. I don't even know how I'm going to pay rent this month. I leaned back, letting her words sink in. Huh, I said, as if I were genuinely surprised. And here I thought you didn't need my help. She sniffled loudly. Jake, please, I was wrong, okay? I shouldn't have said those things. I shouldn't have laughed at you. But I need you right now. You're the only person who can help me. I resisted the urge to laugh. The only person who can help her? The same person she called a pathetic failure in front of our entire family? The same brother she spent years belittling? Oh, the irony was delicious. What happened exactly? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. How did they take all your money? Emma let out a shaky breath. Dad told me he'd help manage my finances, right? Since I'm irresponsible or whatever. So I let him have access to my accounts. I nearly dropped my phone. Wait, you gave him access? Don't say it like that. She snapped, her usual temper flaring for a moment. I trusted him. He said he was just going to help me with investments and make sure I didn't overspend. And at first, everything was fine. But then, I noticed weird withdrawals. Big ones. And whenever I asked, he said, oh, don't worry about it. It's for your future. I almost wanted to feel bad for her. Almost. But then I remembered every insult, every sneer, every time she and our family laughed at me. So what changed? I asked. Emma hesitated. Last week, I went to buy something and my card got declined. I called the bank and they told me my account was completely drained. Not just low, empty. Dad took every last cent. When I confronted him, he just shrugged and said, well, you always said money wasn't a problem, right? I let out a low whistle. Wow, that sucks. Jake, she whined, her voice desperate now. I'm begging you. I don't know what to do. I have rent due in 3 days. I have bills. And they don't care. Mom just told me to figure it out, and Dad told me I should be grateful he even supported me for this long. I took a moment to think. This was the first time in years that Emma had ever been on the receiving end of life's cruelty. And now, suddenly, she expected me to swoop in and fix everything? I could have. Easily. One wire transfer, and all her problems would disappear. But where was she when I needed help? Where was she when I was working 16-hour days, grinding to build my business while she mocked me? Where was she when I was eating ramen for weeks because I couldn't afford groceries? I let the silence stretch. Then I sighed dramatically. Man, Emma, that's a tough situation. I know, she cried. So will you help me? I smiled to myself. Nah. What? Why would I? I asked, my voice calm. You said it yourself. I'm a pathetic failure who will never succeed, right? So how could I possibly help you? Jake, I didn't mean that. That was just, ugh, I was joking. Oh, so it was a joke? I mused. You know, funny thing about jokes. They stop being funny when life decides to turn the tables. She was silent, probably realizing for the first time that she had no leverage here. I continued, my voice light. You spent years treating me like garbage. You took my money, my gifts, my generosity, and then turned around and humiliated me in front of our whole family. You never took me seriously, Emma. And now? You want my help? She let out a choked sob. Jake, please. I don't have anyone else. I sighed, pretending to consider. You know, I'd love to help, but I think you should figure it out on your own. After all, that's what Mom and Dad told you, right? Jake. Oh, and by the way, I added, my voice suddenly sharp, you might want to check your credit score. Something tells me Dad didn't just stop at your savings. The sharp gasp from the other end of the phone told me all I needed to know. I grinned. Good luck, sis. I mean it. And with that, I hung up. Now, all I had to do was wait, because something told me this was far from over. 2 days passed before I heard from Emma again. I expected more desperate calls, maybe even a groveling apology. Instead, I got something far more entertaining, a text from our cousin Lisa. Dude, you won't believe what Emma just did. Curious, I called her immediately. All right, spill. Lisa didn't even say hello. Emma stormed into your parents' house last night. I laughed. She finally confronted them? Oh yeah. Screaming, crying, the full breakdown. She kept demanding her money back, and when your dad just shrugged her off, she lost it. I mean, full on threw a vase at the wall, lost it. I raised an eyebrow. She what? Yeah, Lisa said. She was fuming. Kept shouting about how they ruined her life, and how she was basically homeless now. Lisa paused, then added, I don't think she's ever been told no before. I chuckled. Well, there's a first time for everything. And then, Lisa continued, her voice dropping as if she were about to share the best part. Your dad just sat there and laughed at her. I blinked. Wait, laughed? Oh, hard, too. Like, full-on mocking laughter. He was like, oh, poor baby, welcome to the real world. And Mom just sat there nodding like she agreed with him. Damn, even I wasn't expecting that. I could practically see it, Emma standing there, eyes red, hair disheveled, wearing one of her expensive designer outfits that she didn't even pay for, realizing for the first time that she was completely alone. No trust fund, no family support, no backup plan, just her and the cold, hard reality of the world she spent years looking down on. And the best part? Lisa continued. She stormed out and tried to call, like, everyone she knew for money. But, turns out when you spend years treating people like dirt, no one actually wants to help you. I smirked. Shocking. Lisa laughed. Oh, and get this. Her landlord is already threatening eviction. She's 2 months behind on rent, and I don't think she even realized because Dad was paying it before he, robbed her blind. I let out a low whistle. Yikes. So what's she gonna do? Lisa hesitated. Well, I was gonna ask you that. Because she's been telling everyone she's working things out with you. I barked out a laugh. Oh, really? That's interesting, considering I haven't answered a single one of her calls. Lisa sighed. That's what I thought. But I just wanted to warn you, she's desperate now, Jake. She might do something crazy. Crazy? That was an understatement. Emma had never not gotten what she wanted. And now that she was cornered, she was dangerous. And as if on cue, my phone buzzed. Emma. I let it ring. Then another text popped up. Emma, Jake, I'm outside your place. Please let me in. We need to talk. I stared at my phone for a moment, then stood up and walked to my window. And there she was, standing on my doorstep, designer handbag clutched in her trembling hands. Makeup smeared, eyes red from crying. She looked wrecked. I took my time opening the door. When I did, I leaned against the frame, arms crossed. Didn't expect to see you here. Emma looked up at me, her face a mess of desperation and anger. Jake, please. I have nowhere else to go. I tilted my head. That's funny. A month ago, you were laughing in my face, telling me I'd never succeed. And now you're begging me for help? She swallowed hard. Look, I was wrong, okay? I get it now. You were right. I was a terrible sister. But please. I have nothing left. I let the silence stretch. Let her squirm. Let her feel the weight of every insult, every mockery, every time she treated me like I was beneath her. Finally, I smiled. Oh, I'll help you. Her eyes lit up. You will. I nodded slowly. Of course, but on one condition. She wiped her eyes. Anything. I'll do anything. I stepped forward, lowering my voice. I want you to get down on your knees. Her breath hitched. And apologize for everything. Emma's face twisted in shock. You're joking, right? I raised an eyebrow. Do I look like I'm joking? Her jaw clenched. Jake, come on, I shrugged. Fine. No apology? No help. I moved to close the door. Wait. I stopped. Emma stood there, frozen, her pride warring with her desperation. Then, slowly, she sank to her knees. She looked up at me, eyes burning with humiliation. I'm sorry, she whispered. I cupped a hand around my ear. What was that? Didn't quite hear you. Emma's fists clenched. She took a deep, shuddering breath. I'm sorry, Jake, she said, louder this time. For everything. For laughing at you. For treating you like a joke. She swallowed hard, taking you for granted. I watched her for a long moment. Then I smiled. Good. And then I stepped back and shut the door in her face. Because some lessons? They have to be learned the hard way. And Emma? She was just getting started. I stood there for a moment, listening to Emma's frantic knocking. She was losing it. Jake, open the door. You said you'd help me, she cried. You can't just leave me out here. I sighed, rubbing my temples. A month ago, she had mocked me in front of everyone, calling me a failure while draped in expensive clothes I had bought her. Now she was outside my door, begging. Something wasn't adding up. My parents had never treated Emma this way before. She was their golden child, their perfect daughter. If they had taken her money, there had to be a reason. I pulled out my phone and called my dad. He picked up almost immediately. Jake, he said, sounding unsurprised. She's at your place, isn't she? Yep, I said, glancing at the peephole. Emma was pacing outside, her arms wrapped around herself. Dad let out a short chuckle. Didn't take long. I frowned. What happened? Why'd you take all her money? Dad sighed like he was being forced to explain something painfully obvious. Because she was about to waste every last cent of it. I raised an eyebrow. Waste. She has zero financial sense, Jake, Dad said. You think she sat down and thought about how to use that money? No. She got access to her inheritance and immediately started burning through it. She spent almost 10 grand on some ridiculous luxury handbag and was this close to putting a down payment on a sports car. I stayed silent, processing that. I shouldn't have been surprised. Emma had always been reckless. She never had to think about money because our parents had always covered for her. She was weeks away from going completely broke, Dad continued. She doesn't have a job, she doesn't have savings, and she doesn't listen. So yeah, we stepped in. I exhaled slowly. So you took it all? Dad snorted. Would you rather we let her waste it all and come crying to you when she's got nothing left? He had a point. Emma wasn't responsible. If she had blown through her inheritance, she would have never admitted it was her fault. She would have blamed everyone but herself. She needed a wake-up call, Dad said. Grandma left that money for her future, not for handbags and sports cars. So we put it somewhere safe. I hesitated. Where? Dad chuckled. That's not important. That was the part that didn't sit right with me. But at the same time, I couldn't argue with why they did it. Emma had never been held accountable for anything in her life. Now, for the first time, she had to face the consequences of her own actions. Outside, the knocking had stopped. I checked the peephole again. Emma was leaning against the wall, her face buried in her hands. A month ago, she laughed in my face when I needed help. Now she needed me. I took a deep breath. I wasn't going to bail her out. I stepped away from the door, debating whether I should even open it. Emma was still outside, but she had stopped knocking. Instead, she had slid down against the wall, hugging her knees. Her shoulders were shaking. She was crying. A month ago, she had humiliated me in front of everyone. She wore the expensive clothes I had bought her while she called me a failure. She laughed with my parents while I walked away, alone. And now, here she was, broke, desperate, and suddenly realizing she had no one else to turn to. I could let her sit there, let her stew in it. But I knew Emma. She wasn't just here to apologize. She needed something. And knowing her, she was willing to say anything to get it. I finally unlocked the door and opened it just a crack. Emma's head shot up. Her eyes were red, her makeup smudged. "Jake," she breathed, scrambling to her feet. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "So," I said, "you finally hit rock bottom?" Her lip trembled. "Please," she whispered. "I just need what?" "Money," I scoffed. "You already had a fortune, Emma, and you wasted it." She shook her head frantically. "No, I didn't waste it. I barely got to spend any before they stole it." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what exactly did you buy before they took it?" Her face twitched. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "That's what I thought," I said. 10 grand on a handbag, Emma? A sports car? You didn't even try to be responsible." Her expression twisted in frustration. "It's my money, Jake. Grandma left it to me. And what do you think Grandma would have said if she saw you blowing through it in a month?" Emma flinched. That shut her up. I sighed. "Look, I talked to Dad. I know why they took it. And honestly," I shrugged, "I don't blame them." Her face contorted with rage. "Are you serious? You're siding with them?" I didn't say anything. She took a step forward, her voice rising. You hate them. They treated you like garbage. And now, just because it's me suffering, you think they're suddenly right?" I narrowed my eyes. "No, Emma. I think you were wrong. And for once, they actually did something smart." Her face crumbled. She wasn't just mad. She was panicked. "But I don't have anything, Jake. They took everything." "Then maybe you should have planned better," I said coldly. A choked sob escaped her. She shook her head violently, gripping her hair. "I can't believe this," she whispered. "You'd actually let me suffer." "Emma," I said, rubbing my temples. "You're not suffering. You're finally dealing with what the rest of us have to deal with, responsibility." Her hands balled into fists. "I'll pay you back," she pleaded. "Just help me now, please. I just need enough to—" "No," her face twisted. "I said I'll pay you back." And I said no. Her breathing was erratic now, like she couldn't handle hearing the word no for the first time in her life. "Fine," she snapped. "Then at least let me crash here until I figure things out." I let out a bitter laugh. "You mean the way you let me crash at your place when I needed help?" She paled. She knew exactly what I was talking about. A year ago, when I had lost my job and needed a place to stay, I had turned to her. I had begged her for just a few weeks to get back on my feet. And she had laughed in my face. She had mocked me, told me to figure it out, like everyone else did. I stared at her, watching as the realization sank in. She swallowed. "Jake, that was different." "No, Emma, it wasn't." Silence. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Then, her face snapped into something different, something ugly. The tears were still there, but now there was something else in her eyes. Fury. "You like this, don't you?" she hissed. "You love seeing me like this. You think you're so much better than me now." I didn't respond. She let out a sharp laugh. "Fine. You want me to beg? Is that it?" She spread her arms. "Go ahead. Gloat. Say I told you so." I tilted my head. "I don't need to." She glared at me, her whole body trembling. Then, without another word, she turned on her heel and stormed down the hallway. I watched her go, my jaw tight. She had come here expecting me to save her, to throw her a lifeline, just like everyone always did. But this time, she was on her own. For a few days, I expected to hear from Emma again. A text, a call or something. Maybe another round of begging, or some half-hearted apology wrapped in manipulation. But nothing came. She had stormed off, and for once in her life, she actually stayed gone. I told myself I didn't care, that I was done with her drama. But then, about a week later, I got a call. Not from Emma, from my parents. "She's in trouble, Jake," my mom said, her voice thick with worry. "She's completely out of money. She maxed out her credit cards, and now she's been evicted." I let out a slow breath. "And—" Mom hesitated. "She's staying at a friend's place, but it's not stable. She's been calling us nonstop, begging us to give her the money back. She even threatened to sue." I couldn't help but laugh. "Sue you? With what lawyer? She can't even afford a sandwich." Dad sighed. "We're not giving it back, Jake. She just wasted again." "Good." Mom hesitated. "Jake, she might come to you again." I scoffed. "She already did." I said no. "Then she might try something desperate." That part made me pause. Desperate how? Dad exhaled sharply. I don't know. Just be careful. I hung up, feeling uneasy. Emma wasn't just broke. She was desperate. And knowing her, that meant she was dangerous. A few nights later, I found out exactly what they meant. It was around midnight when I heard the noise. A faint scratching at my door. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but then bang, a loud thud, like someone was testing the lock. I grabbed my phone and checked my security camera. There she was, Emma, standing outside my apartment door, wearing a hoodie, her face shadowed. My stomach twisted. I turned on the microphone. Emma, what are you doing? She froze. Then she looked up, straight into the camera. And she smiled. That was when I called the cops. I don't know what she was planning to do that night. Maybe she thought she could force her way in. Maybe she was just trying to scare me. But whatever it was, that was the moment I knew I had made the right decision. Emma wasn't just entitled. She wasn't just spoiled. She was vindictive. And when she didn't get what she wanted, she escalated. I haven't seen her since that night. She left before the cops arrived. I don't know where she is now, and honestly, I don't care. Some people only learn when they have to. Maybe this is the lesson she finally needed. Or maybe she'll just find another victim to leech off. Either way, I'm done playing the fool. But what do you guys think? Was I too harsh? Should I have given her some help? Or was I right to finally cut her off? Let me know, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around how my own sister could stoop this low. Hey, I don't even know if I'm looking for advice or just need to vent, but I guess we'll see where this goes. I'm Alex. I'm 27, and for the past few years, I've been working as a full-time streamer. It's not something I really talk about with my family much, mostly because they don't understand it, and honestly, I prefer it that way. But here's the thing. I make good money, more than enough to live comfortably, invest, and, up until recently, support my family financially. My parents were never rich, and growing up, things were always a little tight. My dad, let's call him Greg, worked an average office job and always complained about how real jobs don't pay enough. My mom stayed home, and my sister, Emily, well, she's a few years younger than me and still figuring life out. I don't blame her for that. But what I do blame her for is what happened a few nights ago. See, ever since I started making real money, my dad's attitude toward me has been weird. He's never directly acknowledged my success, never asked how I make a living, and certainly never treated me like an adult who's capable of taking care of himself and them. Instead, he treats me like some loser who refuses to get a real job. It used to just be eye-roll-worthy comments like, "Oh, playing video games all day? Must be so exhausting," or "When are you going to do something productive with your life?" But recently, it's gotten worse. Last weekend, I went over to my parents' house for a family game night. We don't do them often, but every once in a while, my mom insists on quality time, so I go along with it. I figured it'd be a few rounds of Uno, some lighthearted bickering, and maybe a home-cooked meal if I was lucky. Instead, it turned into a night of subtle and not so subtle jabs at me. It started small, my dad making fun of how I sleep in all day. I don't. I just work late. Then my sister chimed in about how I never really grew up. Eventually, my mom started reminiscing about how I used to have such big dreams when I was younger. You know, as if I were some tragic disappointment. I tried to brush it off, keep the peace. I've been dealing with this for years, and honestly, I've been over it. But what I didn't know was that Emily had been recording parts of the night on her phone. And 2 days later, she posted the video. I wasn't even looking for it. I was just scrolling through Instagram when I saw a notification that she had posted a story. I tapped on it without thinking. And there it was. A shaky, low-quality video of my dad, sitting back in his chair, drink in hand, saying, "I swear, Alex has the easiest life on earth. Plays his little games, talks to nerds all day, and somehow pays rent. He could be homeless in a year and not even see it coming." Then, laughter. My sisters. My mom's. Even my uncle was in the background, chuckling. I swiped through the next few clips, and it was more the same. My dad going on about how Alex thinks he's some kind of businessman, while my mom made a joke about how I should put that computer science degree to use and get a real job. And my sister? She was filming it like it was some hilarious behind-the-scenes moment. At one point, she turned the camera on herself and whispered between giggles, "This is why he never brings a girlfriend home." Like I said, I knew they didn't take my job seriously. I knew they thought I was just wasting my life away in front of a screen. But something about seeing them say it when they thought I wasn't listening, hearing the laughter, the mockery, the sheer lack of respect, hit me in a way I didn't expect. For years, I'd been helping them. I'd covered bills when they were struggling. I paid off my mom's medical expenses when she needed surgery last year. I even gave Emily money when she was short on rent for her apartment. And yet, here they were, laughing at me like I was some pathetic loser they had to tolerate. I closed Instagram, sat there for a second, just staring at my phone. And then, for the first time in years, I felt something shift inside me. Because if that's how they really saw me, maybe it was time to stop helping them. At first, my brain tried to make excuses for them. Maybe they were just joking. Maybe this was one of those moments where people say stupid things for the sake of family banter. Maybe I was overreacting. But the longer I thought about it, the more I realized, no, this wasn't just one offhand joke. This wasn't some harmless teasing between family members. This was contempt. A group of people I'd been supporting, in ways they probably didn't even realize, sitting around and laughing about how pathetic they thought I was. And the worst part? They meant it. You can tell when someone is joking. There's a certain energy to it, something lighthearted, something affectionate. But that video? That wasn't lighthearted. That was my dad sitting there, confidently tearing me down like it was the most natural thing in the world. That was my sister recording it because she thought it was entertaining. That was my mom chiming in, not to defend me, not to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be trashing Alex like this, but to add to it. I felt something tighten in my chest. A dull, simmering heat that wasn't quite rage yet, but close. I wanted to text Emily right then and there. Ask her what the hell she was thinking. Demand an explanation. But I stopped myself. Instead, I opened my banking app. I scrolled through my recent transactions, just letting the numbers sink in. $1,500. Rent money for my parents' house. $600. The last chunk of Emily's car payment. $3,200. A credit card bill my dad had forgotten to pay. $250. Groceries, from when my mom called saying they were short last month. Line after line. A quiet, damning list of all the ways I've been helping them. All the times they'd come to me with a small favor or an unexpected expense that they just couldn't handle on their own. And for years, I'd said yes. Every single time. Because I wanted to help. Because they were my family. Because no matter how dismissive my dad was, no matter how little respect they showed me, I convinced myself that I was doing the right thing. That someday, they'd see I wasn't some lazy failure. But now, staring at that video, at those transactions, it hit me. They weren't ever going to see me differently. Not unless I made them. I took a breath. Then another. And then, finally, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I opened my group chat with my parents and my sister. And I typed, hey, just saw Emily's video. Didn't realize you all thought so little of me. 3 little dots appeared almost instantly. My mom, typing. Then they vanished. Then my sister started. Then stopped. Finally, my dad replied. Oh, you saw that? Come on. Don't be so sensitive. We were just joking around. I stared at the screen. Joking. Right. Before I could respond, Emily chimed in. Yeah, it wasn't serious, LOL. You know how dad gets after a few drinks. That heat in my chest burned a little hotter. Funny. I don't remember it being a joke when you needed money for rent last month. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, dude, seriously? You're mad over a stupid video? I clenched my jaw. This wasn't just about the video. It was about the years of disrespect. The years of being treated like some kind of joke, even while I was the one making sure they could pay rent, keep the lights on, buy groceries. And they still didn't get it. So I typed one last message. I'll make this simple. If you think my job is so embarrassing, you won't have to worry about it anymore. Don't ask me for another cent. Then, before they could respond, I muted the chat. And for the first time in years, I felt something like relief. Of course, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because if I knew anything about my dad, it was that he never handled losing control well. And I'd just taken away his favorite safety net. I had a feeling the real fallout was about to begin. The first few hours after I muted the chat were eerily quiet. No messages, no frantic apologies, no desperate attempts to argue. For a brief, stupid moment, I almost thought, maybe they got the message. Maybe they finally understand. Then, around 9 p.m., my phone lit up. Dad calling. I let it ring. A minute later, a text. Pick up the damn phone. Then another. Don't act like a child over a joke. And another. You really think you're going to cut us off over this? Grow up, Alex. There it was. That familiar tone. That mix of anger and entitlement. like he was owed a conversation, like I was the one being unreasonable for finally setting a boundary. I ignored him. 2 minutes later, Emily texted, "Dude, you're being so dramatic. Dad's pissed. Just talk to him." It wasn't even that serious. I didn't respond. Then my mom, "Alex, honey, please don't do this. You know your father didn't mean any harm." That one stung more than it should have. Not because I believed her, but because of how automatic it was. How predictable. She always did this. Minimized his behavior. Swept things under the rug. Smoothed things over just enough to keep the peace. I could practically hear her voice in my head, that tired, exasperated sigh she always used whenever I dared to push back. "You know how he is, Alex. Just let it go." But I was done letting it go. I was done playing along. So I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, shut my laptop, and went live. It was a good stream, too. Pulled solid numbers, had a great game, even got a couple of big donations from some regulars. And the whole time, I kept thinking this is my real life. Not them. This. I should have felt free. And in a way, I did. But I also knew my dad. And I knew he wouldn't just let this go. I crashed around 3 a.m., completely exhausted, and when I woke up the next morning, the first thing I saw was my phone screen absolutely flooded with notifications. 16 missed calls. 8 from Dad. 4 from Mom. 2 from Emily. 2 from an unknown number. And then, at the very top, the one notification that made my stomach drop. My bank app. I tapped it open, already dreading what I'd see. $600 withdrawal. $150 withdrawal. $350 withdrawal. I stared at the screen, my brain taking a second to process what I was looking at before the realization hit me like a freight train. They took money from me. More specifically, my parents had just drained my joint emergency savings account. The account I had set up years ago. The one I created back when they were struggling, when I still thought I could trust them, when I was naive enough to believe that helping them would make them appreciate me. I barely used it now. It was just a backup, a safety net. And they were emptying it. My hands were shaking as I yanked my phone off the charger and immediately called my bank. "Yeah, I need to remove someone from my account," I said, barely able to keep my voice steady as the customer service rep greeted me. They started asking for security details, confirming my identity, all that standard stuff, but I could barely focus. My mind was racing, a mix of anger and disbelief crashing over me in waves. They really thought they could do this. They really thought they could steal from me and I'd just take it. While the rep worked, I pulled up my family group chat and, without bothering to read any of the dozens of unread messages, I sent one final text. "You just stole from me. I'm done." Then I blocked all of them. No more arguments. No more justifications. No more excuses. I was done. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. People like my dad? They don't just walk away when you take away their control. And sure enough, later that afternoon, I heard it. A loud, angry knock at my door. Not the casual kind, not someone dropping by for a visit. This was insistent, demanding. I already knew who it was before I even checked. But still, I looked through the peephole anyway, just to confirm. And there he was, my father, standing on my doorstep, jaw clenched, face red, fist practically trembling at his sides. He didn't look angry, he looked furious. And I had a feeling this was about to get a lot worse. I stood there, staring through the peephole, my heart pounding. I wasn't scared, at least, not in the way he wanted me to be. But there was something about the way he stood there, his whole body practically vibrating with anger, that made my blood run cold. He didn't just look pissed. He looked offended, like I had done something to him, like I was the one who had crossed the line. Another knock. Louder this time. "Alex, open the damn door." His voice was sharp, clipped. A voice I'd heard my entire life, a voice that always expected to be obeyed. He pounded his fist against the door again. "I know you're in there." I took a deep breath, trying to decide what to do. My first instinct was to ignore him, let him rage out there until he got bored and left. But I knew my dad. That wasn't going to happen. He would stay. He would yell. He would escalate. And I wasn't about to have my neighbors calling the cops because my father didn't know how to take no for an answer. So I unlocked the door. The second I cracked it open, he shoved his way inside. I barely had time to step back before he was already in my apartment, standing in my living room like he owned the place. "What is wrong with you?" he demanded, his voice low but seething. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides, his whole body tense like he was barely holding himself back. "You blocked your mother? Your sister? After everything we've done for you?" I let out a sharp laugh. "Everything they've done for me? That was rich. You stole from me, I said, my voice cold. Don't act surprised that I'm cutting you off. His face twisted into something ugly, a sneer curling at his lips. Stole from you? Don't be dramatic. That money was for the family. I felt my fingers tighten into a fist at my side. That was my money. That I earned. That I chose to share with you when I thought you actually needed it. I took a step closer, refusing to let him tower over me like he used to when I was a kid. But I'm done. I'm not your damn ATM. I'm not paying your bills. I'm not bailing you out anymore. He scoffed, shaking his head. So that's it? You're just going to turn your back on us? I felt something in me snap. You turned your back on me. I shot back, my voice rising. You and Emily and Mom sat there and laughed at me. You mocked me, humiliated me, and now that you're losing my money, now you suddenly care. He rolled his eyes, letting out an exasperated sigh like I was the one being ridiculous. Jesus, Alex, it was a joke. You're really gonna throw a tantrum over that? I couldn't help but laugh, sharp, bitter, incredulous. A joke. It was always a joke when it suited them. Yeah? Funny how it wasn't a joke when you were taking my money, though. Funny how you never had a problem with my embarrassing career when it was paying your damn rent. That was when something changed. His expression flickered, just for a second, just long enough for me to see it. Uncertainty. A crack in his armor. Like for the first time, it was actually registering how serious I was. But then, just as quickly, the anger was back. He stepped closer, jabbing a finger in my chest. You wouldn't have that money if it wasn't for us, he spat. We raised you. We supported you. You wouldn't be where you are if we hadn't busted our asses putting food on the table for you. I let out a breath, shaking my head. And I paid you back. 100 times over. I took care of you. I covered your bills. I gave you everything I could. And it was never enough for you. I locked eyes with him, my voice turning ice cold. But I'm done. You don't get to insult me, steal from me, and then waltz in here acting like I owe you something. For the first time since he barged in, he didn't have a response. He just stood there, breathing hard, his face twisted in rage. But I could see something else beneath it. Realization. Because deep down, I think he finally knew I wasn't bluffing. Then, just when I thought he might actually leave, his lips curled into a smirk. You think you're so damn successful, huh? His tone was mocking now, dripping with condescension. Think you're some big-shot internet star? I didn't say anything. I just crossed my arms and waited for him to get to his point. He let out a short, bitter laugh. You think this streaming thing is gonna last forever? You think you're set for life? Let me tell you something, kid. You're nothing. You're a joke. You think these people watching you online actually care about you? The second you stop being entertaining, the second some younger, better streamer comes along, you'll be forgotten. And when that happens, he spread his arms wide, giving me that patronizing, self-satisfied grin that used to make my stomach churn as a kid. You'll come crawling back, just like I knew you would. I just stared at him for a long moment. He really believed that. He needed to believe that. Because the alternative, that I was actually successful, that I was actually better off without them, was something his ego couldn't handle. So I smiled. A slow, knowing smile that made his smirk falter just slightly. You really think that, huh? I said, my voice almost amused. You really think I need you? I took a step closer, looking him dead in the eye. You have no idea how much money I make. And that was when I saw it. That flicker of something in his expression. Greed. Curiosity. Doubt. For the first time, he actually thought about it. And that was when I knew. He wasn't here to argue. He wasn't here to make me feel guilty. He was here because he thought he could still win. But he was about to learn he had already lost. For the first time in my life, I saw something I never thought I'd see on my father's face: hesitation. Doubt. He wanted to believe I was bluffing. He needed to believe that I was still the same kid he could manipulate, that my success was temporary, that at any moment I'd come crawling back, desperate for his approval. But he wasn't stupid. He had never actually bothered to ask me about my career before, but now, standing in my apartment, my nice apartment, in a building he probably couldn't afford to rent a closet in, it was hitting him. I was doing better than him, better than all of them, and he hated it. You think you're too good for us now? His voice had lost some of its bite, but he was still trying to cling to the upper hand. You think just because you got lucky playing video games on the internet, you don't need your family anymore? I sighed, shaking my head. You don't get it, do you? This isn't about money. It's about respect. I gestured around the room. I worked my ass off for this. And instead of being happy for me, instead of being proud of me, you sat there and laughed. You treated me like a joke. I took a step closer, my voice cold. But I'm the one laughing now. His jaw clenched. You think you'll be laughing when this all falls apart? Because it will fall apart. And when it does, don't come crying to us. I tilted my head, studying him. That's funny, because I was about to say the same thing to you. He scoffed, but I saw the flash of uncertainty in his eyes. I let the silence stretch between us before I finally spoke again. You need me, I said simply, not the other way around. His face turned red. He opened his mouth to fire back some half-baked insult, but then his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his scowl deepened. I smirked. That mom asking if you got me to change my mind? His grip on the phone tightened. Bingo. I crossed my arms. Let me guess, since I cut you off, the bills are stacking up. You've got debts. Maybe mom's been hounding you because suddenly, there's no money coming in to save her from herself. Maybe Emily's panicking because she lost her safety net. I let my words sink in before I delivered the final blow. How does it feel, Dad, knowing that the embarrassing failure is the only reason you weren't drowning? His breathing was heavier now, his whole body tense with rage. But he had nothing to say, because he knew I was right. I walked to the door and opened it wide. Get out. He didn't move. He just stood there, staring at me like he couldn't quite believe this was happening. Like he still thought there was a way to turn this around. You're making a mistake, Alex, he finally said, voice low. Family is all you've got. I held his gaze. That's where you're wrong. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of him. I wasn't seeking his approval. I didn't care what he thought, and that scared him more than anything. He lingered for a few seconds longer, maybe hoping I'd change my mind, maybe waiting for some last-minute guilt trip to land. But I just stood there, waiting. And finally, he turned and walked out. I shut the door behind him and locked it. Then I took a deep breath. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't even sad. I just felt free. I took a moment to just stand there, letting the silence settle around me. No more guilt, no more obligations, no more bending over backward for people who never cared about me in the first place. It was over. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. I knew they'd try to reach out again. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, when the money ran out, when things got tough, when they needed me again. But I wasn't going to be there. I had spent years supporting them, hoping they'd see my worth. But the truth was, I never needed their validation. I was successful without them. I was happy without them. And I wasn't about to let them drag me down ever again. So, what do you guys think? Did I handle this the right way? Would you have cut them off too? Or would you have given them one last chance? Let me know because honestly, I've never felt more sure about a decision in my life.